Welcome back, lovely viewers. Bridget here to do my April wrap-up. For the month of April, I think I read an equal number of manga as well as novels, so I will be going through the manga first, and then we'll get into the novels afterwards. In no particular order, the first manga I have here is Parasite Volume 8 by Hitoshi Iwaki. This is the last and final volume in the Parasite series. I believe I told you guys that I had been holding back on finishing it because I was really enjoying it. I finally went ahead and finished the series. I was very disappointed with the last volume. I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, or more like 2.5. I figured I was gonna give the last one a lower rating from the beginning because I knew it was only gonna be 8 volumes long, and from all of the information and questions that I had initially starting off the series, I knew that 8 volumes was not going to answer those questions, and I wasn't that particularly pleased with how it ended. I think it ended okay, but I think it was like a cop-out to what they could have made it. The problem with this essentially was they didn't even go into what parasites are, how they came to be, whether it was evolutionary or whatever. It's decided, hey, it doesn't matter that these parasites are taking over human bodies, we need to learn to live with them because they're part of this world. And I just thought that was just a cop-out to what they could have turned this into. This could have been an amazing series. It should have been way longer than it ended up being, and I was very disappointed with this one. So 2.5 out of 5 stars. Then I read volumes 1 through 4 of Seraph of the End, or Wari no Seraph, story by Takaya Kagami and art by Yamato Yamamoto, and I am loving this series right now. Amazing. Post-apocalyptic story with vampires, and that's really all I can say to give you a quick synopsis of the story, because it's definitely more in depth than that, but it would just be an entire separate video. In April I read volumes 1, 2, 3, and volume 4. And overall I gave all 4 volumes 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed all of them, and I cannot wait to continue on this series, and I'm watching the anime as well, and it's amazing. I could read this online, I could continue on instead of waiting for the next volume to come out, but when I really love a series that's been licensed in English, I prefer waiting. I like the anticipation of the wait when it comes to manga, so I want to wait for the rest of the series to be released. I believe volume 5 comes out in June. I have been kind of thinking of doing an anticipated manga release video. Tell me in the comments down below if that's something you're interested in. But anyways, one of them is volume 5, which comes out in June, and I pre-ordered it already, so yes. The last physical manga that I read was volumes 1 through 5 of Dawn of the Arcana by Rei Toma, another series that I'm absolutely loving right now. It's one of my favorite fantasy shoujos, and I think the biggest thing for me is that it reminds me of a very well-written YA fantasy novel. So if you're into Throne of Glass or Fallen Kingdoms, this is very reminiscent of that type of thing. Not the same story, but that type of well-written fantasy YA. If you really like those and want to get into some manga, I highly recommend this series as the series that you get into, and it is complete. I believe there's 13 volumes total. At least I think it's complete. I haven't really done my research, don't quote me on that. I had the first 5, and I did order a few more volumes, and they're coming in the mail. They should be in my next haul, so look forward to seeing those. Anyways, 5 out of 5 for all of these as well. Basically, it is about this character here. She is Princess Nakaba. In order to instill the peace between 2 countries, she is betrothed to the prince of the country that they're kind of going to war with. And she goes over there, and of course there's conflict still between the countries, and there's a lot of political intrigue, and there's a love triangle, and all those good things that you like in YA, and it's amazing, and I can't stress that enough. So yes, I read volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, and volume 5. Last manga I read in April was the BookTube Manga Club's choice, and that was Akagami no Shirayuki Hime. by Sorata Akizuki, and there are 13 volumes out, and it's an ongoing series, but it is not published in English, so I had to read all of what I read online. I did not get that far, though, to be honest. I only read 2 volumes, and I gave them both 3 out of 5 stars. It is a cute shoujo, and I didn't take the fact that it's sort of supposed to be a Snow White retelling to heart. I don't think it was actually supposed to be a retelling, just using elements from that story in this one because there's really no comparisons to it in the actual manga besides the apple thing. So this will have an anime adaptation that airs in the summer season, and that is why we read it. So I was interested to see if I would like it, so that when it does air I will probably watch it. I did enjoy it, and I think I'll enjoy the anime adaptation a little bit more than I will the manga, but it was still cute, and again I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. That is all the manga that I read in the month of April. Let's move on to the novels that I read. The month of April was really when I started getting into audiobooks, and I was listening to a lot of audiobooks. I think for the most part, all of the books that I read in April, I also listened to, but I was kind of following along with the physical book. The first one that I listened to / read was The Princess Bride by William Goldman, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, I believe. I really enjoyed it for the most part. I am a huge fan of the movie. However, I had my issues with the book version. It was mostly the narrator, and it was because my love for this story is all about the actual fantasy story, not the narrator that's telling the story. If you're familiar with either the book or the movie, it is essentially a person reading a story to his son. So in the movie version, you really only get interrupted from the story a couple times, and that's really it. In the book, however, the narrator goes off into so many tangents that are unrelated to the actual fantasy story about Wesley and Buttercup, and that I really did not like at all. I did, however, like seeing further into the movie. Like, it goes into Buttercup and Wesley's story kind of after they get away from Prince Humperdinck, so I really enjoyed that. It also goes into backstories about each of the other side characters, as well as going into where they went after their adventure as well. So I really enjoyed that part, which is essentially why it got 3, more like 3.5 out of 5 stars. I probably would have given it a lower rating than that if it didn't have those enjoyable parts. For my workbook club, we read Airborne by Kenneth Opel. This is the first book in the Silverwing trilogy, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I liked the story. My issue with this was he went into kind of tangents about how the airship worked and its inner workings and cogs and mechanical things about the airship that they were in, and I didn't really understand or care that much. I just wanted to get to the actual storyline, but there was parts where I was just like, continue on please, let's get moving, I don't understand what you're saying. So other than that, really good. I will continue the trilogy, but I did suggest that we stop this series because it wasn't interesting me enough for us to do it for our book club, so there's that one. So instead, I convinced them to start the Parasol Protectorate series. I've already read this first book. I read it last year sometime, and so I wanted to reread it. I didn't tell them I've read it already because honestly, everyone's so picky. It has to be, I have one person who it has to be a completed series, another person where it has to be something that none of us have read, so it's kind of impossible because I've read a lot, and my roommate who's in this book club has also read a lot, and it's really hard to find something that none of us have read. So anyways, I didn't tell them that I've already read this first one because I haven't continued the series after the first one, so technically I haven't finished this series. So I reread this one in April and obviously really enjoyed it. 5 out of 5 stars. This time I listened to the audiobook though, and I love the audiobook. Very good. The narrator is amazing at her different accents, and the main male character in here, he's from Scotland. He has a Scottish accent, and she's really good at that like strong, burly Scottish accent. I don't know how else to explain it. You should just check it out. and I highly recommend the audiobook for this. It made it super enjoyable, and I'm in the middle of the second book. The next two books are only on Audible. There are no physical copies for these books, and I think I've mentioned them once before. That is I read the first two books in the Pillars of Reality series by Jack Campbell. So we have the Dragons of Dorcastle and the Hidden Masters of Morindor. And this is a fantasy slash steampunkish. It's not really all that steampunkish, but there are some steampunkish things because one of the main characters is a mechanic. She builds things, so kind of steampunky in that aspect, but other than that, not really. Absolutely fantastic. I would probably say more YA than adult, although on here it's labeled as regular high fantasy, but it is more on the YA side, I would say. But I'm obsessed with this series, beyond 5 out of 5 stars for both books. I absolutely cannot wait for book 3, and I just found out the release date for it, and that is June 14th, which is so soon. And I cannot wait. I've already pre-ordered it on Audible. Again, it is an Audible exclusive book, so you cannot get a physical copy for it. You have to listen to it, and it is amazing. And I've been telling everybody it's amazing, and you should all listen to it if you like audiobooks, because I'm absolutely head over heels in love with this story, and I cannot wait to see how it concludes because it is a trilogy. So the next one is the last one. And then the final book that I finished and completed in the month of April was The Name in the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is the first book in the Kingkiller Chronicles. I've actually also read the second book, which for the most part, I read a good chunk of it in April as well, but I more or less finished it the 2nd of May, so it will be in my May wrap-up instead. For now, though, I read this one. I really enjoyed this. I gave this first book 5 out of 5 stars. We're not going to go further into my thoughts on book 2, but for this first installment, I really enjoyed it. I loved the main character in this story. It is essentially a character named Kavoth who is telling his life story to a chronicler who's writing it all down, and he is very famous for having done all these things, and he's telling his life story of how he got to where he's at now, and I cannot wait to see where he goes from here. I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook is amazing for this. The narrator is amazing, and I loved listening to this. I, for the most part, listened to this entire book instead of actually reading this physical copy. Book 1 was about 20-something hours. Book 2 is 42 hours long. For the most part, I liked it, but we will go further into book 2 in May because I have other thoughts about that. But anyways, this one was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. So that is all for my April wrap-up. Stay tuned for my May TBR. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!